Hello, my name is Lawson, and um, I'm conducting research on education, treatment, and recidivism rates in Florida prison systems. This is actually for a capstone class for a criminal justice degree. Um, Basically, my paper talks mostly about educational programs that are offered throughout the prison systems in Florida. It also talks about the vocational programs and different types of programs that set up when prisoners are are, are released from prison. It'll actually talk about them locating employment, residential placement, and general rules and restrictions on probation and parole. Um, it will basically draw a complete review or analysis about how effective rehabilitation programs are for offenders. This paper will also explore some of the current rules of operation of our justice system and why some changes are definitely needed. In Florida alone, out of 33,348 inmates, there's a 65% testing level that most inmates basically test on the ninth grade level. Um, and basically, this is an issue with the recidivism rate. Majority of prisoners that come in, they come in with a potential to, to do well, to basically go out there and get a decent job when they're released. However, because of the lack of skills, they lose time when they're in prison. And a lot of times when they're released, they just get to a point where they can't find a job because they don't have the skills to do so. Um, the three measures of educational program success in prison is based on three things. One is based on the completion of such programs, employment after release, as well as the reduction of recidivism rates. So the federal government basically based that on those three measures. Studies have also shown that the ABE and the GED testing that's normally done in prisons, they're only offered at 20 out of the 78 facilities that are in Florida. They also offer vocational and career technical education programs, and basically those programs are, again, most of them are offered on a needs base, depending on where the facility is. If it's located in an area where, it's rural, they're probably going to have like carpentry or landscaping, something of that sort. However, still 78 prisons and maybe only 4 or 5 of them actually carry the vocational programs. So that is in itself is a problem. Um, Research has shown that education is the most effective form of criminal prevention. Educational skills can deter people from committing criminal acts and can decrease recidivism rates. In 2010, the Florida State Prisons came up with this substance abuse treatment programs. And basically, it's mostly for those inmates that have substance abuse issues with drugs and alcohol. However, only 6,120 inmates were actually treated, okay? Out of the many thousands that are in need of drug treatment programs, only a selection of them were actually able to complete some of the programs, and some of them successfully. Most of these programs are licensed by the Department of Children and Families. And again, they're only offered in certain areas. So when the inmates are, when they're in prison, the hand selection of those that actually get the program, um, the majority of that, when they're actually released, it really doesn't do any good, because a lot of times they'll have that, while they're in prison, and when they get out, they have no connection to any programs after that. So therefore, the recidivism rate still stays the same. They came up with a program called modalities in the state of Florida. Basically, modality is basically for a substance abuse program. They have like 3 different levels for intense outpatient programs for substance abuse. The first modality 1 is an intensive program, and basically, they have a minimum of 12 counselors that supervise inmates per week, and they give them, complete assignments and stuff for them to do, but it's considered to be very, very intensive. The modality 2 is in the prison residential therapeutic community. They use therapeutic they use a therapeutic psychology to basically deal with concepts and deal with people with addictive personalities and that sort of thing. So they take more of the psychological standpoint of substance abuse and why they do what they do. Modality three is after they have completed such programs, they could actually become an alumni for the association and they could actually help other inmates. That's when they have completed steps one and two. They have a long-term residential substance abuse treatment program, and basically in 2005, studies have shown that they were down to almost 80 offenders. The success rate reached about 45.4%, and again, this program was successful, but it was abandoned due to a lack of funding. So there you have it again. Recidivism rate goes up. The some of the programs in Florida are good, good ideas, but again, the funding basically stops it. Outpatient mental health treatment and sex offenders program. This is a pretty big topic here in Florida. In Florida alone, we have over 30,000 sex offenders. However, they are not getting the proper treatment that they need to be rehabilitated. Majority of sex offenders in Florida are not awarded these services and programs in their specialized area, and they often demonstrate poor lack of funding for these particular programs. There was a company by the name of Liberty, it's a private organization that conducted this study that housed over 1,400 inmates with benefits to transition them back into society. Liberty, as you guys know, for those of you that know the criminal justice field, they actually decided to get into private prisons, and they actually started to develop all these programs, and basically they did this to make a whole lot of money. So they put, all these prisoners together, all these sex offenders together, 1,400 of them, put them in a facility. Well, someone from the New York Times went there to do some research on this program, and he was stunned that, when he got there, he said that most of the inmates were taking off their shirts. They had, pictures of naked women on their walls. And while he was there, one inmate was having sex with another. So they put all of them together with chances of rehabilitating them. However, this place was operating in, like a madhouse. So again, they're using state funds to create these programs that simply just not working. So that program was shut down. Again, also DCF basically had to go in and deal with this. The cost of these programs, oh wow. To have an inmate, it costs about $19,500 annually for one inmate, okay? So that's a lot of tax dollars that's going to the cost of inmates. However, if we put more funding into their education, within the 3-year period, with them returning back to prison, maybe this could be a way that we can get the recidivism rate to go down. The Florida Department of Corrections admit that the Florida recidivism rate is 33%. That means out of 3 inmates released from Florida prisons, they will return within 3 years. The recidivism rate will fall less than 22% if prisoners are not offered the educational opportunities. For sex offenders among recidivism rates, they are one of the highest. The case of the Jessica Lumford Act in 2005, it basically was a significant step taken towards Florida laws. And basically this law mandated that sex offenders get 25 years in prison mandatory, and any time that there's a crime against a minor under 12 years old, then they have to wear ankle monitors for basically the rest of their lives. Again, I just think this is just way, way overboard. Once they do their time in prison, there should be other programs like counseling programs to help them to deal with the issues that they may have, but not to watch them for the rest of their life. I think it is a clear invasion of privacy. To further enact these laws, communities in Florida passed over 130 local residency laws on top of the 2005 Jessica Lumford Act. Basically, they're saying that sex offenders are not allowed to reside near school, parks, or playgrounds or areas where children congregate. These laws basically leave, and now in Miami alone, there's 70 homeless sex offenders that live under bridges and tents because they can't live near children, they can't live near a park, they can't live near a beach, so they're living under bridges because that's about the only place that they can go where they're less more than 1,000 feet away from the general population. Again, it still feels like they're in prison. A unique program in North Carolina, a Department of Corrections, basically a mental health therapist by the name of Robert Carbo. He actually conducted an experiment to rehabilitate sex offenders. He put them under very, very intense therapy sessions. And honestly, in his particular program, out of 157 inmates, only two of them came back, for the same sex offense crime. The name of this program is called SOAR. It's extremely popular throughout North Carolina, and it has the successful rate has been great. But they really specialize in nothing but sex offenders, and they really have a passion to deal with sex offenders. And I think that's basically where it comes from. To deal with the problem, you can't be so biased when you see the face of a sex offender. You have to know, like, not to judge because you really don't know, where that person came from. So this particular program specializes in dealing with that. As you know, there's work release programs where most inmates can go in, like when they're at the last ending of their sentence, they get into the work release programs. Again, only 1/6 of the inmate population actually get a chance to go to work release programs. Okay. The Florida Department of Correction houses over 102,000 inmates in only 63 state prisons, and that costs taxpayers $2.4 billion a year. Um, you know, but again, we are not offering any educational services. We're not offering anything to the inmates so that they can live a life outside of prison. So, however, as the recipient of the state, I really wish that we could, work together to create programs for them in prison so they will have a future when they're released into congregation. I have an audience here. Anybody have any questions?
On that last note, about the North Carolina program,
Mm-hmm.
with SCORE, and you mentioned over $2 billion annually.
$2 billion for that's annually for what a prisoner costs
Right.
taxpayers in
Right.
Florida.
So, my question is, this program in North Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
can that be something that
That we can look forward to
we
in
could
Florida.
try in,
I think the SOAR he wanted to know about the SOAR program in North Carolina. Is that something that could be beneficial to Florida? I think it is on a trial basis, and so far, I mean, out of 157 inmates, only two of them came back with sex-related crimes. So that tells me that that program, though it is very, very intensive, that program actually offers things such as role play. They do role play where they're able to be the victim as well as the offender. So they're able to see how much they hurt their victims. So a lot of it, believe it or not, majority of them realize that it's more of a mental problem as opposed to a sexual problem. A lot of them do a lot of this not because it's a sexual thing, but mostly because they're angry or they're mad or they're going through something or they grew up that way. So a lot of it goes back to more psychological issues that need to be dealt with. But I really believe, yeah, the SOAR program will be great for Florida.
I have a second question.
Sure.
In the beginning of the presentation, you spoke about 65% of the inmates that have a ninth grade.
Ninth grade, yeah, 65%. Mm-hmm.
Now, my question is, what population of prisoners is this? Latino, African American?
That is a question that I have not explored. It's the 65% of the population that tested below the ninth grade level what their race is. I pretty much don't have that, but if I can tell you that it's about 70% of them are African American, you're pretty much going to fall in that category. Yeah. Anything else?
And also, you talking about the modalities
Mm-hmm.
of this program?
Mm-hmm. Modalities. Mm-hmm.
Right, you have three parts, right?
Right. Right.
Now the first part, I was with the
Mm-hmm. Well, the first part of the modalities program is basically where it's more of a needs-based assessment where they take the assessment, see if you have a substance abuse problem, which most of them that into the program they do. And the first step of the modalities program is to get you aware of yourself and to basically find out through therapy why you have an addiction to drugs and alcohol, and what is the game plan from there. And the modalities too, basically it's a therapeutic needs based assessment that they do at that point to basically see what's the further options. Again, these programs are extremely expensive. You're talking about 12 weeks, 4 hours a day. Um, and it has been deemed to be pretty successful.
Is that program running throughout the
It has
or selected prisons?
at selected prisons again. Only 6,000 people have actually gone through that program out of 103,000 inmates in the state of Florida. Only 6,000 have been able to complete that program successfully. I see the problem. That's the clear problem. Great. Anybody else? Thank you. Wow.